My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by the legendary Jesper Olsen. Welcome, Jesper.
Thank you very much, Sasha.
So, you have done it all, sir. You have played at some of the biggest clubs, Ajax, Manchester United. You represented your country, 40 times. But please tell me, how did you fall in love with the game?
Going back obviously a long time, Sasha. I was 6 years old, and the home that my parents had at the time was very close to the stadium in Faxe, which is a town I grew up in, and down there watching them train. And the story I think is for many players, they were missing a player. Do you want to play? And that's how it all started. And from then on, I just couldn't. That was it. I was hooked. Absolutely.
Yes. And you're a naturally left-sided player, so you gravitated to the left side instinctively?
Yeah, I mean, in those days, it was not. It was probably more about playing, I think. I mean, you very small town, all levels of players within the team. And I remember we lost 38-0 one game, and we were then winning 4-0 and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It was really just that was the structure of the club. You have some years very good, some years not so great. So, but it was about playing the game, and we played at schools, in the street, at the training and stuff like that. So we grew up with the football at our feet all the time. Absolutely.
And as a young boy, we know your more common nickname, but you had a different nickname before Devlo, which is the Flea. I want you to tell us about that. But before that, you had a different nickname. Tell us your nickname before your famous nickname.
Yeah, so I was called, a nickname was Chicken because I was so small. I was always very small of build, and that. I'm not quite sure who gave me that name, but that was it became that name. So that's right, yeah. So, and that was all the time in Denmark, in Faxe and Jesper as well, and slight of build obviously, but fast and other things was then I suppose my weapons later on. So and it was just one of those things. Everybody had a nickname, and mine was Chicken in Denmark.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so in Denmark you were called the Chicken, and as a 15-year-old you went to Nisville and you made your senior debut at 17. Obviously, top flight in Denmark. That's a fantastic achievement. You're a young boy. You haven't even become an adult yet. What was that experience like?
Well, so to finish the chapter with Faxe was really that we had probably about 5 or 6 players in the team and the age group I grew up with who were all really good players, and we played indoor football as well, and we won some massive tournaments in indoor football against the big boys from Copenhagen that turned up in all their gear and looked like they had won before the game, and it was very interesting because we had an amazing team, and that gave you kind of a feeling that we were somewhere on the right path if we wanted to go to take some further steps within the game. And those players, I think back, and they were fantastic also for my development and for theirs as well, obviously. And 2 of those players also ended up playing in the Danish first division, like the A-League. So There was that little town was amazing.
Wow.
And then I went to Næstved, which was actually not my favorite club. My favorite club was towards Copenhagen called Køge. And I always went to watch them, and I loved the players there. But Næstved wanted to pay the bus fare to go and train. Mm-hmm. So at the end, I ended up going to play in Næstved when I was 15. And that was, again, same thing, I suppose, which a lot of stories goes back to. You come back from school, throw your bag, get something to eat on the bus, go to training, and come back at 10 o'clock in the evening. Mm. And everybody, I think, has that story. It was never a pain. It was just because this is what you wanted to do. So whatever time you came back, sleep, school next morning, and that's part of the journey, isn't it, Sasha? I really enjoyed it and loved every minute of it. So I would do the whole thing again. So
fantastic. And so you stayed there a little while, obviously, and then the Ajax come knocking. So the obviously the Dutch giants, and you had some massive success. How did you get pulled across from Danish First Division, obviously, into the Dutch First Division?
Yeah, so and the same story really again. So I was the youngest player in the first team, and had a lot of really good guys looking after me. And we had a fantastic camaraderie as well. So we were also outside the pitch, younger guys, girlfriends or no girlfriends. We always seemed to be together outside the game as well, and had a really successful period with that team too. Nearly won the Danish championship by the last second of the game. An old guy from Copenhagen, he scored a header, and we didn't win the championship. But the biggest crowd, 35,000 in those days in Næstved, was amazing. So,
yes.
And this year we have a 40-year reunion, which I obviously can't go to because of what's happening at the moment. So, but again, incredible fun memories and a great learning curve, and just really, really good to feel that players even then we're trying to teach somebody young coming into the team what to do as a player and helping. And that's certainly stood me in good stead all the way through. And then, like you said, then Ajax came along. And Ajax already had 4 Danish players in the team at the time. So there was already a connection with Dutch football and German football and Belgian football for Danes to go and do really well. So that was a link, I think, that they had watched me for a while and said, listen, we would like to sign a contract with you and so on. And I knew there was Danes already there, so that was a kind of
it felt natural.
Absolutely easy thing to do. Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously, you had some fantastic success. You know that the back-to-back championships, 81, 82, 82, 83. And then winning the cup also in the 82, 83 year. You know, who can forget? But I want to talk about a very special moment where I consider you made history. On the 5th of December, 1982, you're 1-0 up against Helmond, and you get a penalty.
Yeah.
So Johan Cruyff famously steps up.
Yeah.
Casually walks up to the ball, passes it to you. The ball's played forward. You pass it back gently. The keeper is lost, walks out, almost puts his hands up. And then Johan casually passes into net. So we all know that famous moment.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how the hell you came up with this idea. Where did this idea come from?
Well, Sasha, a lot of people ask me whose idea was it, and I think, what do you think? You know, I was 21, and Johan Cruyff had done all these things in his career, so of course it was Johan's idea.
Yes.
And we did. I reckon it was September something in training after we finished the normal training. He said to me, Jesper, let's just try this. I've got an idea. And we tried it 3 times, and this thing is, before you run into the 18-yard box, the ball has got to go 360, so a whole round before you can run in, and then you are allowed to pass the ball back, and obviously as the goal stood, you're allowed to do that. And then we didn't talk about it until that day, the 5th of December, and he said, let's do it. And maybe that was good we didn't talk about it, because I was... my nickname Chicken would have been appropriate probably there. I mean, how is this going to work, you know? Yeah. But the whole sequence went obviously really well. And there's you can see there is when Johan passes the ball to me and runs in towards the middle to receive the ball back, he does a little kind of weird jump, because he is as nervous as I am, obviously, to make sure that he gets the ball back. And yes, and they have the rest is history, I suppose. So that was... a very strange moment. The crowd was not sure. The goalkeeper wasn't sure.
So the idea had percolated you practice it 3 times in September, and then on the day you get the penalty. You're only 1-0 up. It's not like you were like 3 or 4 where the game was won. You know.
No. That's right.
Yeah, so it's very. It takes a lot of courage to do a penalty kick like that. But I think this is the beauty of our game, when we can experiment and show our creative side.
Imagination, absolutely.
Yes, yes. So in that Ajax side, you played with some fantastic, what I would call football royalty.
Turned out to be unbelievable.
Yeah. Can you please touch on some of these gentlemen of the game?
Yeah, so at the time, obviously, when I got there, there was a few Danes still playing, and then the young players that came into the team was the likes of Ronald Koeman, who's now obviously manager at Barcelona again. Yes. Frank Rijkaard, who played and was manager of the Dutch team too, and played at AC Milan.
Yes.
Van Basten, is again amazing. At 18, also went to AC Milan and did incredible. And those players are amazing to have played with. But at the time, we were all young, we were all learning our trade, and
yes.
But you can see at the time, obviously, that they were outstanding talents and had something special for sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So very very proud to have played with them, but also to see what they have done later on in life. They have been very successful.
And what was the competitiveness like? So when you've got talented individuals in that elite, are you trying to show each other what you can do at training? Talk to me what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Ajax training was as hard as the games, no doubt about it. There was a lot of talent there. There was older players. Wim Jansen was in the team who played in the World Cups in 74, 78. There was Piet Schrijver was the goalkeeper for the Dutch team a lot of times behind Youngblood. And there were some amazing players. Excuse me, Farnenberg on the right wing also ended up playing a lot of times for Holland and played in Italy. So amazing talent. And of course, the training was, if you have to perform and do what you can to show that you should be in the team.
Yes.
So that was it was good, but it was hard.
And in terms of who did you gravitate to in terms of from a friendship perspective at your time at Ajax? Who are the individuals that you felt closest to from a friendship perspective?
Søren Lerby, who later became the very famous player at Bayern Munich and also manager. He kind of took me under his wing, and we still speak and are very good friends today. So that was an amazing thing to have somebody there who'd been at Ajax already for 7 years and have won everything. Excuse me.
No problem.
So he was one. The other ones was Peter Booth, the left back, and the reserve goalkeeper, and Hans Gallier, because we lived in the same area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and this is the beautiful thing about football. We get we out of these championship winning moments, we also get friendships that carry a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Very special. Very special. Now, in July of '84, you get one of the largest clubs in the world approach you. And I understand you did the deal over tea with Ron Atkinson. Is that true? You did when you met him, you did the deal over a cup of tea?
Part of it, I think.
Okay.
Is I think the lead up to Ron Atkinson being interested was that we played England in the qualification for the '84 European Championship in France, and we beat England and we drew. And in those games, I did really well. So again, the English, they obviously pick up on these things and always looking out for players. But in those days, I say it was only 3 foreign players in your team.
Yes.
So, and I was not quite sure. Again, I was happy at Ajax, but I think what always stood out for any player that went to Ajax was the next step was normally to a bigger league, because the Dutch league, as we know, is obviously a smaller league, and the games are a bit different too in terms of status. So when the Man U came along, of course, I was interested. There's no doubt. I supported Man U when I was a young child as well. So there, of course, there was no doubt about that. So and I'm not sure if it was over a cup of tea, but it was Ron Atkinson was obviously, as West Brom had just become manager of Man United. Yeah. So, but that was there's no doubt about that. So it had to happen.
Okay. So so you knew the moment the approach happened that you were going to go there.
Yeah, I mean, money is one thing, but it was not really. I mean, it was. I don't think money was, that it was more a case of let's go to the next level and
Yes.
and see. And I follow English Premier League like you have done out here since we were really young and knew all the teams and all the players. So yeah, of course, that was very interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so 139 games, 21 goals, fantastic left peg. To me, no wonder you were called the flea. It seemed like, you were, I don't know, how much did you weigh as a player in these years? Between 80 and 86.
59 kilos.
59 kilograms, and you stand roughly about 170.
168.
168. So there were some burly defenders during the 80s that could really kick you hard. So what did you do to get around?
Well, I mean, Sasha, it's a funny thing because I've never been afraid of. I mean, big players, whatever. My game was to try and get them to kind of think they knew what I was doing, but that was just a little step in front of what they were thinking. So that was always one of my weapons. I think I read the game really well and knew when to dribble and stuff like that. So I'm never afraid of going into tackles bigger players either, because I always feel that if you go into tackle just for the ball, you're never going to hurt yourself or somebody else. You just go for the ball all the time.
Yeah.
So in England, of course, it was different. It was a different type of game than Ajax. It was a lot more games than Ajax, and the games were certainly harder, no doubt about it. So
yes,
no break at winter time, and the pitches in November. I think if you could find any grass, you were lucky, and there was waterlogged and all that in those days. So completely different game, and of course it was harder with the way I played too. Absolutely, yeah.
And the obviously, some of those goals. How did you become so good at that, finding those lines, finding those pockets, and then you sort of some crackers with your left? What was the type of extras that you had to put in to develop your gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Sasha. It's a question I think a lot of players kind of look back on it, and I can only compare it to other sports too. So my mom and dad had a shop in Faxe, and at the back there was a wall, and I don't know how many hours I spent kicking the ball against that wall, but I've spent a lot of hours there. And we played obviously at school. It was asphalt in those days, so you had to stand up and not to hurt yourself. And we played with milk cartons that was put together with elastic. So because we had no ball and stuff like that, so I think you learn so many things from that, different ways of playing. And I suppose that was then my speed, obviously, because speed is also very important the way I played. But I think all those hours spent doing all sorts of different things, and indoor, and I played badminton, and we played obviously outdoor, and we did all sorts of sports, handball and everything. And I'm sure that also helps along the way.
Yes.
So
it's interesting that you say the wall, and then now at this time in COVID, how the wall can be a junior coach to a player. The ball, and the wall. And because the wall is unforgiving, you give a wrong pass to the wall, the bounce off the wall, and then you need to readjust. So it's interesting. Young players take note. And famously, obviously, you got silverware at Manchester United in the FA Cup final in 1985. So tell us about that day.
Yeah, I mean, amazing, because I watched a lot of the finals, obviously leading up to, I suppose, every final for since I could watch them, and the day in those days were bigger because the FA Cup was massive, and it's taking a little bit of a backseat to some of the European competitions now. But it was amazing. It was the last game of the season, and you go to London 4 days before in a hotel, and your family comes across, and they're all going to the game too, and you just relaxing and looking forward to this last game. And the English, they do it very well. It was amazing. The whole build-up and in your getting your suits and it was just so all that stuff before the game, fantastic. And then when you obviously win the game, and the way we did the 10 men in extra time, and the celebrations afterwards, and back to Manchester on the train and driving through town, it is the incredible memory for sure. And I only got there once, Sasha, and obviously you win when you get there, because otherwise it becomes a different memory. But it was amazing, yeah.
And is it relief when you win or elation? What's the feeling when you know you've won a title like that? Take me back. Is it because you work so hard for, the whole year and the build-up of the pressure, and the final whistle goes? What comes over you?
Amazing, because Kim Moran, who I still speak to as well, and we were in business together for 10 years after we stopped playing. It was sent off, obviously, and that was the first sending off in the FA Cup history. So, and then Whiteside scores an amazing goal from the right-hand side with his left foot. And of course it is, because the whole thing, that one game, the whole nation is watching that one game.
Yes.
And of course elation, because you know what's going to happen afterwards. You're going to walk up the stairs in those days and you're going to give the medal and the trophy. So, difficult to describe, but it is, of course, an amazing feeling. Yeah.
A euphoric feeling. So
absolutely.
It's interesting, because this is a time in between. You're also having success with the national team. Okay.
Yeah.
So you compete in the 84 Euros that lead up into the 86 World Cup. And so, when I think about the 86 World Cup, I think about Diego Maradona and what he did in that World Cup, obviously. Yeah. But for me, Denmark had a very serviceable side, okay?
Yeah.
Very honest players. So you had the captain, Morten Olsen, Lerby, Anderson, obviously, who can forget a young Michael Laundrup, yourself, and you had your teammate from United, John Silverbeck, and obviously Liverpool's Jan Molby. So just to name a few, right? So in comparison to some of the other teams I would call superstars, you've got a good side, obviously, but the expectations would be, okay, we're going to go there and do our best and see where we can go. That's
absolutely.
Was that the feeling in the camp of the 86 World Cup? Okay.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Of course.
So respect. So you knew that you were going to come up, but in the group stage, you did very, very well. Yeah, 3 games, 3 wins.
Incredible actually. Yeah.
So I would say based on probably before the expectations, you can do better. 9 points out of a possible 9.
Yeah, we overachieved. We did, of course, really well. And we won 1-0 against Scotland, and then the famous game against Uruguay, obviously, is 6-1. And I think then, of course, then you're in training camp and you get a feeling for, okay, that you never know in these big tournaments, So of course we did very well in the group stages.
So let's double click on that. Obviously, you played the first game, and then I think you got dragged, 20 minutes towards the end, and then the second game you started on the bench. Yeah.
Yeah.
The game's already won. Yeah.
Yeah.
You come on in the 81st minute. What are you thinking? Okay, you're on the bench. At 5-1, the game was won. Right, 81st minute. You're going to play 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 with extra time. So what are you thinking when you come on the 81st minute? What are you going to try and do?
I'm not sure, Sasha. It's such a long time ago. Okay. But I mean, if you can score a goal or do something, that obviously you're on the world stage.
Yeah, And that's exactly what I mean. So even with 10 minutes to go, the game is won. You're looking to contribute.
Absolutely, of course. You still want to be, who knows, in 10 minutes a lot can happen, so we know that. So absolutely. And you want to do your best. No doubt.
Famously, 7 minutes later, you score a fantastic goal, right? So, and this is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
And a very, very casually a game against West Germany, just before half time, you step up to the spot.
Yeah.
And you, from looking back, to me, it looks like you comfortably put it away. So, now you're at your first World Cup. You've scored already a couple of goals. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be a good feeling with the boys. Yeah. So you're now, you're now into round in the 16, obviously, but now you're going to face a very formidable Spain side.
Sure.
Very formidable, and you do quite well, right? I think the first half.
We did very well the first half. No doubt about it. I felt really comfortable and really not really. The Spanish didn't do much, to be honest.
They didn't do much. And you score again a penalty, which obviously was deserved. How do you decide who's gonna, were you always gonna take the penalties if you were on the park?
If the guy who was there he didn't come to the World Cup, Alan Hansen, he normally took them. So that was, and I started to take the penalties. Then I felt very comfortable with it. Yeah, no problem. So
And obviously, in the stage, what does it feel like? Obviously the 86 World Cup. This is you're playing in front of tens of thousands of people. Yeah, so the pinnacle of football, and it so quickly came crashing down in that game. Yeah,
you did.
You found yourself, instead of being where you should be up on the left, you find yourself back in right back. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
obviously with that pass back to pass back to the keeper. Yeah, Butragueño comes in, he collects the ball, and it's 1-1. And obviously the rest is history. After this game, what was the feeling in the camp? Okay, so round of 16, you've done very, very well. You've been, in the second, the 45 minutes in the second half would probably be 45 minutes that you'd want to forget.
Yeah.
After this, so you exit in the round of 16. What's the feeling amongst the boys?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people about this over the years, and also lately because of like what we are doing now, Sasha, and so first of all, the mistake I made, I would do exactly the same thing again.
Yep.
I already had in my head what I was going to do, so I didn't see him coming in that quickly. There was a split second there where I kind of lost him out of my mind.
So Emilio was very quick. He was a very fast player. He was super quick.
Absolutely. I've played it with my right foot, and it sits up a little bit when I play it back, so it changed a little bit direction the ball, but that's history as well. But and then a lot of players and people say, but it was 1.5 time, so you could still have gone out and you could still have, it was like the game was 0-0. But I think, on my feeling, certainly, is mentally you lose something as a team because of that mistake, because you're feeling really good. You're 1-0 up. You think we go to half time, 1-0, and we can change things if we need to. So I think certainly that made a big impact on the team as a whole. And I think we would never lose 5-1 like that if it had been for.
Yeah, I understand. So anybody who's played the game has done those mistakes. Yeah. So, it's part of the game. Yeah. You do some good things, and making mistakes is a natural part. Maybe a learning for the younger players that are watching.
Absolutely.
So even World Cup stars,
of course,
can make mistakes. So, okay, we're going to slightly shift gears here. So, we fast forward. You finish your time at United, and you end up into the French First Division. And you play
Bordeaux.
Like many games for Bordeaux. What was it like playing First Division in France?
Fantastic. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it probably more my style of playing as well. So I said there was 3 foreigners in the English teams in those days, and they were hard. I mean, it was long balls, and it was a bit different game. So it was more my style, the French football for sure, yeah. And I loved it in France, absolutely. I had 4 years, 2 with Bordeaux and 2 up in Caen.
Yes.
And really enjoyed it, yeah. Yeah, had a great time.
A lot more technical play, because you were quite technical play. You got in those pockets, and you...
Yeah, different understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, the different way we learned the game. The English game was not because they're not as good players. They're unbelievable players, the English. It was just a different system. You know, the smaller guy up front with the bigger guy and head. So it was just a different game. Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
So, and the French was more that technical stuff, and that's the way they've learned the game. A bit more like the Dutch and the Danes, I would say, actually.
Okay. And obviously a fantastic career. And subsequent to that, you've shifted gears, and you've actually, I didn't realize, you've lived in Melbourne for quite some time. So since 2003.
Yeah, 17 years. Yeah, last month. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, and you've been involved in supporting the game through numerous coaching roles, and you actually spent 1 year at my beloved Melbourne Heart / City now. So tell me about that first season. You were there the first year as an assistant coach, where you would see the famous photo of the boys doing the ice baths in the garbage bins. Yeah,
that's right.
Ice in the garbage bins. When I think about that, the club back then, obviously, I think about that moment. What was that like, being part of the first year of the newly formed A-League?
But it was very, very interesting, because John Van Schip, who I played with at Ajax as well, obviously became the head coach. And so we talked a while, and he said, listen, I need somebody there that I know as well, and maybe can help me a little bit. So would you consider helping out in the beginning? And we first spent 8 months in Port Melbourne in some kind of wine kind of shop, I think, sitting there trying to look at videos of players and finding out who, so we go and watch games and come back again. And
it was the old intralot officers, right? So
that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
so the intralot officers, because the backers,
one of the owners of
the
club.
Yeah.
So that, because obviously we had no real base or anything at that stage. So that was first 8 months. We spent a lot of time to discuss about player types that we would like to get. So on Asik Bey, who plays, I think, still in Turkey now, was one of the first ones we went to see, and it didn't take us long to say, okay, we really like him. And then you had so very interesting, actually, as a project as well, to go and find players.
Yes.
And then the first season, obviously in the A-League, the big games against the likes of Melbourne Victory and Sydney, obviously, as well. So just very interesting to be part of that first build of the A-League.
Yes. Yeah, like so creative project, gets your creative juices going. And now there is a greater focus on the junior aspect, of gaming. Yeah. So you're involved in supporting developing players. So tell us a little bit about the academy that you're involved in. What it is that you do, and who is involved in that.
So really, I mean, that's where I think many years ago I found my niche in certainly wanting to be teaching. It can be coaches as well. We go into club and help the coaches, and we teach young players, and it can be players that one-on-ones. It can be players of 6 years old, or it can be players of 21 that wants to go abroad, or 18, or all types of players. And my interest is very much what we just talked about, Sasha, is that the focus on young players should purely be about development of players. Because it's like going to school, you're learning your trade, you're learning what do I want to be, how do I develop as a player. And I think we sometimes lose sight of that as coaches, because it becomes about winning. And of course, you want to win. Yes. We mustn't forget that when you play, you want to win. but it is not the most important thing. It's about developing these young players, and not only as players, I think also it's about respecting your teammates, the other team, and learning to help other players in the team. Not always thinking that it's somebody else's fault if it doesn't go right for you, and all these things that comes, and not only in sport, I think in business and in life as well.
Yes.
And I think that is the most important thing now that I try and install in young players is that, you know, if you want to do it, great. Go and do it. Like we said, kick the ball against the wall and do all these extra things if you want to become or try to become a better player and maybe even reach the top level. But if you don't want to do it, then it's okay too. That doesn't. I mean, we can only give you the tools and tell you what helps. But if you don't want to do it and you want to do something different, that's okay with me. But the ones who wants to do it, we can hopefully direct in the right direction and help them along the way to do the right things and learning what it takes to go to the next level. And that's my interest, is very much like that, team and individual players. Yeah.
And so let's double click, because you've been you still have some connection back at your second senior club, Ajax. I see you have some involvement in connecting the academy system from there. The coaches come from there to Australia.
Yeah.
Tell me, firstly, they've been coming now for quite some time.
Yeah.
What do they think the main difference of the kids who go? Because obviously there'll be different levels. You know, people, anybody can put up their hand to go and be part of the day or the week. What do they see as the main difference between what they see back home and what they see in Australia, in the Australian junior football player?
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation I think I've had with people since I got here in 2003, Sasha. We are so far removed from what goes on in football as a whole, obviously, because it's not the number one sport in Australia. We have got so many other sports to fight against and to consider, obviously, that the players will maybe go and play AFL one season and then they play cricket and then maybe rugby and then they play soccer a bit and stuff. So there's a massive sporting life in Australia, but it's certainly not soccer or football that takes out the most young players. But saying that the community sports for football or soccer has grown immensely, I think, and other competitions like the NPL and all that has come forward. So I just think it might not even be a question of time. I just think if we don't get it right at the top end, so we get the A-League interesting and exciting to watch and more games, it's going to be a big struggle for a long, long time. And I think that it's one package. I think you want to see exciting players. I also think we want to see young players, Australian players. If they don't play, they can't show that they're good enough. And I don't think they play often enough. Take chances with young players. They're hungry. They want to do well and work hard, and let's see what they can do. So I think it's a long time, and the process is very, very difficult because we just struggle with other sports and enough games, I think, at the highest level. And that's, I think, sad that we have a long road ahead of us to get it right. That doesn't mean we cannot get it right.
Yes.
We just got to be on the same pace, all of us. Otherwise, it will never work.
And it's interesting that you say that. I think I personally think that the football is improving, like the standard of football. If I look back at a game from a decade ago and then a decade before that and a decade, and I look at the average player. I'm not saying that the best players you could take out of an era and they could play. You could fast forward them 15 years and drop them in, and they would still be a fantastic player. But if I look at, let's say, the number, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to the 14th player, and look at that standard, I would say overall there's been an improvement. That's not to say, not to disparage the greatest players that have played in the old NFL versus the new A-League. but I think you're right in terms of people look at the pinnacle and judge the entire sport by what happens at the top level.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we are now involved at grassroots level, okay? And
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
coaching our junior teams, and you're doing your one-on-one training or coaching coaches, and we're feeding into this big giant. So what can we do? How can we do our part to make sure that we sort of pay it forward to the next level? What are some of the things as a coach that we can do?
Well, I think first of all, Australia, you have to find a playing style. This is the way we play. This is how we want to get there with the younger players, because when they get into the system, we play the same way, and the kids, whatever age they get to the top level, they know exactly what is expected of them. So, and there's players coming to us, and this is again just because of the system. I think, as Sasha, is that one player plays for a team, local team, and is told by the coach to do this. Then they play for the Football Federation Victoria or another New South Wales. The coach tell them to do this. Then they play in a school team. The coach tell them to do something different. Then they go for one-on-ones. The coach tell them to do something different. So suddenly the kid, and I've had them coming to me and say, listen, I don't know anymore. What do I do? Because I'm told this, but then somebody tells me this and that. So the playing style is I think, is the first thing we got to get down on the page. What do we want to look like as an Asian in terms of style? How do we want to play the game? So, and I know that is again, we know mostly around the world now that we play out from the back, and it's a really technical game. And I think that's what we want to find out. It doesn't have to be that way, but if that's what we want to do, then everybody has to do that when they are teaching the game from the day the kids start until they hopefully whatever level they reach. So that's one thing. And I think it's the coaching has to be spot on. I think that's another thing. I mean, we have got a lot of people here that's coaches, and a lot of people that with a great football knowledge, I think, as well. A lot of different nationalities with great knowledge, but we have to understand that we have to develop that. We don't own the players. We have to develop them. We have to make sure that we do the right things for them, and look at them and say, okay, if January you're here, December, hopefully we made you a better player. I think that is more important than if you win 8-0 or 10-0 every week.
Yes.
Teach the game, and let the older players help when they get to a different level too. In the system, you should help young players. Teach them, because we are there as teachers, because we are older. So these conversations, I think, is very, very important, of course. And we can't change 1 year this, 1 year that, because we will just have to start all over again. So that's my opinion, Sasha. I mean, that's only my.
So so as junior coaches, I think when the curriculum was written, there was an articulation of how we would like to play.
Absolutely.
So we've achieved that objective, that little bit more. We want to develop an attacking technical player that it's able to play in between the lines and move the ball forward. And there was an articulation of a formation. Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
So the question there is, we've had now, and at the elite level, so our if you say the sort of the Joeys and the Ollie Roos, I would say that those boys at that level know how to play that system 4-3-3. The question there is, what happens if the opposition doesn't play a 4-3-3 or doesn't play a shape formation that's not conducive? We've gone now to these tournaments, okay, and other coaches know already that we're going to go and play a particular formation in a particular style. Yeah, right? And this is now a football problem. Yeah. Okay. So we need also, what is Plan B?
Of course, adaptable, of course, but that's within the game, I think, isn't it? I mean, 4-3-3, 4-4-2, or 3-5-3, or whatever. It depends, but I don't think the players you have at that level would also be able to adapt because they have learned all the way through, I suppose, technical ability too, to perform these different formations. And you will learn as you go along too, I hope, especially in if you get to the top level. you have to play different systems. Of course, you sometimes have to play defensive too. Maybe it depends. So, but that's player knowledge and intelligence, I suppose, isn't it as well? So, and I think that's it's a massive question for Australian football is what we want to be, but also we are kind of very new in that at that top level, aren't we? Because I was there in 2005 when Luisi scored the goal, and I mean, what a feeling, at that level. Only 15 years really on from there, and a lot has happened for sure.
Yes,
and a lot more will happen, hopefully.
And I think this is part of the problem, because we had a group of players, fantastic players, and then we expected that there to be linear growth from that moment. And it hasn't happened. And so we say, okay, what went wrong? And so now we're trying to unpick the stitching of the suit, going, oh, no, it hasn't really worked out. But success really isn't a straight line. You would know from your career. Okay, it's a windy road. So, so we need to obviously also understand that, where is our North Star? Okay, and this is above my pay grade, right? And maybe this conversation, but we need to know. I believe, if I look back at the Socceroos playing in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and today, there is an Aussie spirit. There is something that makes Aussie players similar to maybe what makes the Scottish player. Okay. Yeah. I think it's okay to say I'm from a developing footballing nation. Okay. Of
course. And of course.
We are a little bit more resilient and we work hard. Okay. I think that's the Aussie spirit.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can meld that the strengths of our work rate and our work ethic, and couple that, maybe become a little bit more technical. Okay. Sure. And maybe this is the blend of the cake mix. What are your thoughts on?
But that's what I think maybe I didn't put it right before, Sasha. But that's the playing style. What is it that we are as a nation, as a players? And I think we look at cricket as well, and rugby, and a lot of sports. The Aussies are fantastic, great hearts, and will sport around Australia. Whatever it is that they go out and do in the water, or they do the running and the marathons and everything, they love sport, don't they? I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. So there is, of course, something there. We just got to find it in our game, I think. What is it that we want to stand for, and then believe in it? And I think that's the Australians are incredible at sport. Absolutely.
Let's sort of couple down. You mentor coaches. I've seen previous articles. Clubs bring you in and you talk about coaching philosophy. What is the message that you want to impart to coaches that are in the game?
Well, I think the most important thing is we've got to get the training to be exciting, I think. So I don't want to talk too much. We've got to show them what we're going to do. And then I think you watch and you pick out things that they can do better, and you explain to them, maybe, you pass the ball when you look at the ball and all these kind of things. You move away from the cone, you ask for the ball, you have all those kind of things, but we do it within drills. So you're not wasting any time, I think. I mean, there's nothing worse, I think, for players, and you will know, Sasha and myself, within a few minutes, the players go,
I forgot.
I don't want to play, I want to train, I want to do something on the pitch. And I think that's where it helps massively, obviously, if you play the game, because you can then teach them what to do, the right things. And I think this is with coaches that we just got to get, we know from when we trained, as Sasha, in the past, training was not always really, really different. It was a lot of the same drills, a lot of the same things. You just do it better and better and better all the time. Yes. So you become a lot more, I think, precise in what you do. So your passing becomes better, becomes sharper in the right area at the right time, and all this. And I think this is my philosophy, really, is that so in the game, we pass and control the ball all the time, don't we? That's the main things we do.
Yes.
In between, we do our running and our positioning. But so if you can do that as a young player, learn to do those really well, you have a calm head, because you're not worried about it. You're not thinking, oh shit, how do I control the ball? How do I do this? So the bang is there. And then your decision making becomes a lot easier, because you're already taking two elements out of the game. You can pass and you can control the ball. That's settled. Then it becomes about where do I pass it when I pass it.
Yes.
Do I pass it in front of him or into feet to get it back and all that? So your message is also in the pass. You make it easier for your teammates because you know where to pass the ball.
Yes.
So those things becomes, and then it becomes a game within the game. I want to give my pass wrapped up in a little gift package to my team and say, hey, go along, do this with it. So you're actually playing a game yourself to say, how can I give the best pass to my teammates so it is easier for him or her to do something with that pass. So then suddenly you start thinking completely different because you have control of these other things. And of course that takes time.
Yes.
But it's very simple things that happens on the pitch, isn't it, when you have the ball?
So what I've heard, Jesper, is firstly, as a coach, we need to create an exciting environment. Okay.
Yeah.
And that will inadvertently, you didn't say this, but for me, that will cause fun. Excitement equals fun, right?
Absolutely.
So now I'm engaged.
Yeah.
But two, right? We need repetition. Okay.
Yes.
So there is a tendency, I think, of the junior coach to show how versatile they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a session plan. Here's another session plan. Here's another session plan. Here's another session plan. Maybe we need to get back a little bit more into simplicity, basics, repetition.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the third one is less of this, more this. Yeah. More show, less talk.
Absolutely. And also this is young player. Don't worry about making mistakes. Don't worry. You're a young player. You make mistakes.
Yes.
We expect you to make mistakes, but we'll then hopefully help you to make lesser mistakes along the way and in a positive way. Don't worry, Billy. Come on, next time better. I know. So we got to give a positive message because these young players, you know how quickly you can turn somebody off by saying the wrong thing. We don't want that within a team environment. We want positive stuff all the time because all players make mistakes and coaches make mistakes. So we have to be positive. That's the big thing for me. Forget about having a go at people. Help them. Stick together. Be positive.
Yes.
And when you do that to somebody else, they will do the same to you. And you suddenly get a feeling, oh, okay, I made a mistake, but I can do it better. I think, Sasha, that's also life, isn't it? Stay positive.
This is sort of picking it back now to its simplicity at its finest. Yeah. So it's encouraging them to participate because I was talking with some friends about this. They're all not going to make it. We call the make it, right? But can we keep the kids involved so they can participate and then play at whatever, a Sunday league, park football. I still play park football. This is a beautiful thing, right? So still it's 11 aside, still a referee comes, okay? Still you can have a coffee or a beer after the game. This is
get excited,
and the 90 minutes of football. This is the pleasure of how we started.
But also the young players, we don't pay them.
Yes.
They pay the club to get a service. At the higher level, of course, Jose Mourinho or whatever can have a go at their players. They get paid, and when we play too, we got paid to do the job. So, of course, that's a different situation. Here, they're playing for the club. They're paying to play. So we have to teach them. We have to help them because that's what they're paying for.
Yes.
And they should be helped because they're learning. That's my big thing for the young players. They're in that learning development of players, learning the trade. So hopefully they go and, like you said, play still when they're 60 maybe and in a community team and have fun. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So
magic. This is fantastic. So you obviously people can contact you for one-on-one or group sessions, or you can do mentoring at clubs. How does it work? You live in Melbourne. How do people get in touch with your business?
Yeah, so Future Football is the business name. So we do a lot of one-on-ones now because of the situation we're in, obviously, Sasha. But normally, one-on-ones is very specific for some players. I think always the team environment is sometimes a lot better because there's a lot more interaction, obviously, and a lot more when you play. Situations are completely different when you have somebody you play against somebody. So future football, we try and at the moment we obviously, like you said, we got Ajax coming out here. We don't coach them; the Ajax coaches they coach. We do all the back end and help them so they can do all their jobs when they are here. But within future football, we coach in Bayside at the moment mostly. So that's where we are based. And anybody can contact us to be part of what we do. Our base at the moment, luckily, we are at Furbank Grammar, which have got fantastic facilities. So we're very, very happy with that. So, and we are just building up, I suppose, like call it a fan base, I suppose, because we are trying to create something which we think is very important for the players at any level to do what we just say as a come and learn, to do it in a fun way as well. We try and think outside the box all the time. We'll come up with new ideas of what to do and so on, like everybody, of course. Yeah. So, but that is what I think the next 5 years is going to be my big aim. And then I get players asking and parents all the time to Europe, how do we get there? What do we do? And that is an incredible, difficult question, obviously, to ask, because this is, we are so far away, and we are up against a massive amount of money, obviously, but also history, and these clubs are well drilled in talent scouting, and so this is from here very, very difficult, of course. That is the big question. How do we do that better too? So,
and I suppose that sort of talent identification is shifting. Obviously, if I've heard of families of talented children picking up and moving. People to move. But I mean, think about the pathways we've got here within Australia. It's not the first time that the Aussie kid comes, plays through the ranks here, maybe goes overseas. You think like an Aaron Moy goes overseas, doesn't quite translate, comes back to the A-League, right? Has a couple of stellar years, and now the rest is history, right? Playing top flight, obviously, signed by Manchester City, then loaned back out, and then last year playing in the Premier League before making that transition across to China. So that's a story. But it's interesting, his story is similar to your story. He did his extras, the extra work. Okay, so what are you going to get 2 nights a week or 3 nights a week, 2 nights a week at a community club or 3 nights a week at an NPL setup, right? Yeah. These players put in extra time by themselves or in organized teaching session. So I think you need to put in the work. What are your thoughts about?
You have to, and you have to do stuff on your own. I mean, I know a boy, he does that's maybe too much for 32 hours a week, but it's a mixture of all different things. Okay. And he has only one thing in his mind. That's it. He wants to be a professional player. And you cannot blame him for wanting to do that. And he's certainly doing everything he can. So that's a mixture of physical and mentally and training and all sorts.
I need to ask age. Don't give me name, but age of the player?
15.
32 hours of football or football-related preparation, physical activity, 32 hours. Anybody listening who says they want to play at the top level, obviously, and you've you've been around the traps. A chance, Jesper? Is this 15-year-old got?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Good. And lots of kids here, I think, but it takes what you just said, Sasha, it takes that extra bit. So the stuff we don't see, like you just said, we have them maybe 3 hours a week or something. And of course, that's not enough. So there has to be something happening outside of what we do with them, because otherwise they will never get there. That's it. And a lot of players say they will do it. They don't do it. And that's okay, like I said earlier. But some of them actually, they do a lot of the stuff. And they're the things we don't see that matters.
And this is the thing. One thing to want something, because we, like to say, I want and insert sentence. Yeah. And another thing to be willing once you get it, because, you know, when you were a 17-year-old and 15-year-old and you moved away from the family home to go down the road, there's also sacrifice.
Of course.
To get something, you need to give something away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you left the family home, you were only a young man, right? So so you need to leave your friends and family.
Absolutely.
So the obviously now we're talking to the player listening. You know, you really got to be careful what you wish for too in life, because there will be other sacrifices. I mean, every professional player who's played abroad talks about that. You know, that yearning that when they go 10 days back at home, that's not long enough. It's not a holiday because you're engaging now with family.
Of course.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm really honoured and humbled to be speaking with you, Jesper, and we're so grateful. You're coming up to 20 years being an Aussie. We're going to claim you. Okay, I know you played for Denmark, but I can always give you an Aussie flag and put it over your shoulders.
I still play here as well.
Yes,
right. Over 45s, yeah.
Over 45s, okay. Yeah. In 1 year, I'll be able to join you. So you play over 45s. You need over 45s. I'll play at any position on the park. It's okay, except in goals. So the joy of still playing. If you could give me one tip, one thing that all coaches should do or think about, what would that be?
I think from what I've been doing over all these years now is that you should never put anybody in a box. So if every player is different, learn differently. They are a special project, I think. So don't just say because of that day something happens and you got to look at the player and I think, okay, this is how I can deal with him or her maybe better, because everybody is different. So I learned in the beginning, I was found it very difficult to maybe coach some of the younger players, like when you get a 6 and 7 year old, and I thought this ain't gonna work, it's too hard, man. But then you kind of say, okay, try and go to their level and think about whatever they are, and then you think, okay, this is good actually, because you get to know the characters a bit better, because you're not expecting them to do exactly what you say. And sometimes you lie on the ground with them and just look at the sky and stuff. And I've actually learned a lot from that, thinking, yeah, okay, this is a 7-year-old and I'm 59, you know, there has to be some give. So I think that's the big thing, that everybody's it's a different age and different level of player, obviously. And that doesn't mean somebody coming to you who's never played before at 9 can catch up very quickly. It depends what's inside of that that person.
So I'll unpackage that to say, don't make assumptions. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
that
open mind. When you don't you box and say, okay, he's a centre back because he's big and burly. Maybe he's going to be Lukaku up front, right? I'm sure Lukaku had a very good frame to play at the back, yeah? The big burly.
Yes,
okay, but there's something that Lukaku gives you up front, yeah?
Absolutely.
As an example. So don't make assumptions, don't put people in a box. This has been a masterclass. Jesper Olsen, thank you so much, sir, for sharing your time and your knowledge and revisiting history. Who can forget that when you made history with the great Johan Cruyff on 5th of December 1982, obviously many years before Suarez and Messi copied you. I would have to say copy. It's slightly different, but it was a copy, okay?
That's right.
Fantastic. You're an absolute gentleman, sir. So I bid you farewell and thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Take care. Cheers.